Hey, welcome back, rankers. You having a good week? I had a terrible Friday night. I went to the football. Very disappointing. Anyway, enough about that. This is the second time I've recorded the show today. The first one was sensational. Oh my God. One of the best shows I reckon I have done in the history of doing shows. And the camera wasn't working. So here we go again. I wanted to talk to you today about a Matt Cutts video that came out today, or a few hours ago anyway. And the question was, how can I tell if my site is affected by a particular algorithm? And Matt goes on to say all the normal things that we usually say here, which is, hey, you've got to go and check your Google Webmaster Tools and were you doing anything naughty, according to Google? Were you doing things that Google doesn't like? Possibly. Was there even an algorithm update? Well, as Matt Cutts says, they do about 600 a year at the moment, so chances are pretty good. Yeah, there's an update every day. What he doesn't say in the video, though, is there are some things that all those checks won't tell you. And one of the main ones you need to be doing is your site : check. That doesn't sound good unless you're a proctologist. What I mean by that is, no, that's my order from DigiKey. You don't want to say that. What I mean by that, no, I made that on the weekend. What I mean by that is site : that colon. Not. Anyway, the reason that you need to do that is sometimes Google Webmaster Tools will tell you all this stuff, but unless you go and do that check, then you're not going to know exactly what Google has crawled on your site. So, and I mention that because I've got a case in point. You may know, and I'll just bring it up. If you watch the telly, which I don't, I watch YouTube mainly. But if you watch the telly, you may be familiar with a show called Real Housewives of Melbourne. Now, Andrea Moss is a friend of mine, known her for a bunch of years, and she's on this show. And she launched this site probably about, I don't know, a week, or no, it was actually probably only a few days before the show went live, and then spoke to me, and we didn't know it was going live, and I had a look at it for her, and I said, it's built in a system that Google's going to have problems with. And the reason for that, it was built in this technology called Ajax. Now, that in and of itself is not necessarily a bad technology, but the way that the technology was being used and the way that the site was being built, using it, it was. And the problem is that Google couldn't see the content. It couldn't really see, or it could see parts of it, but you couldn't really do terribly much SEO with it by the way that it was set up. Now, these sorts of services that were used to build the site initially are great for some people. Sometimes you can find services if you're just starting out, and they might be easy to use, and you don't have to get a web developer involved, and all those sorts of things. The problem invariably with those sorts of services is that you're going to have a problem with Google trying to crawl it, because those sorts of services have to do certain things to make it easy for a non-web developer. And I don't know who built the original site, so I'm not saying it was a non-web developer. But just as an aside, if it's a service that doesn't require a web developer to get involved, chances are Google's going to have a problem with it. And in this case, that was certainly true, that Google was having a problem with it. So what we had to do is that we had to rebuild the site in WordPress so Google could actually see it and crawl it. Now, if you have a look at the Google Webmaster Tools of the site, it wouldn't have told you a whole lot. It wouldn't have said, your site's built in Ajax in this system that we can't read very well. It wouldn't have told you that at all. So we'll just go to Andrea Moss. And you can see here, this is the search queries, right? So you can see back here, this is when the site was live by this point, and this is when the show launched back in late February. And you can see here there's been this big spike now. And over that time, you can see there's been 930. Now, the only reason that there's been this big spike since around the 14th of March is because, obviously, Andrea's popular on the show, there's that, but if the site was still ranking down where it was in the 90s for her own name, you wouldn't see that spike in that search traffic in Google Webmaster Tools. The only reason it's there now is because it's ranking a hell of a lot better. So what did we do? Well, we put it into WordPress. So the team here, we had 5 developers on it. We had Chow, we had Alan, we had Alex, we had Kane, we had Jin. And they worked round the clock, literally. Well, no, they didn't have a clock in the middle of the room and walk around it, but they worked long hours, is what I mean. You pedants out there, you know who you are. And so the outcome of it all was, if we go and have a look at the Google index. Actually, before I do that, I just want to show you something in Google Webmaster Tools. Google Trends. So this is a search for Andrea Moss over the past 90 days. So you can see here that, you know, it's a very different curve to what we were seeing in Google Webmaster Tools search queries. Very different. And, you know, it's been up from the start. When you look at the relative spikes between here, which is on the 26th of Feb, and up here, which is, you know, 48 hours ago, those spikes don't match what we saw in Google Webmaster Tools, and that's because the site wasn't ranking. So obviously, you know, she's becoming more and more popular here. So if we go back into Google Webmaster Tools, we have a look at the Google index. And even this wouldn't have told you a lot unless you went in here and knew what you were looking at. So you can see down here that on or around the, well, there we go, the 23rd, Google crawled the site. Now, it only crawled a grand total of 3 pages, because that's all it could find. When we changed it over to WordPress, you can see here, it went up to crawling 16 pages, and you can see here it's dropped again. That drop is a good drop, okay, because these 3 pages here, Ajax site. These 3 pages here, Ajax site. So what we did was, once we got the site launched and live, we went and removed the other pages from the index. We had to do that because we didn't want Google to get confused about where those 3 pages are gone that I didn't understand. So they're gone. So this is the stuff that, you know, you're not going to understand completely in Webmaster Tools. It comes from, I guess, in our case, having a team of people that have worked on hundreds of different sites, and you get to see a whole bunch of different stuff and understand different things. That particular service that it was built in is quite a popular one, actually. And, you know, I certainly don't want to lambaste it here. But what this shows you that if you're... Oh, incidentally, the other thing that we did, I say we, it had nothing to do with it, it was the team out there. God bless them. The other thing that they did was set up Google Authorship for the site as well. Now, this is important. This is really important. This took it from sort of page 2 up to the, you know, top 3, 4 spots, something like that at the moment. And overnight, literally. And the way it was done is that, or the reason it was done is because Andrea's connected to all these social media properties. So she's got a Facebook, she's got a Pinterest, she's got an Instagram, she's got, what are the other ones? LinkedIn, everything, right? And they're all actually linked to a Google profile. And all those social media outlets are all linking back to andreamoss.com.au. Now, we want Google to understand that when someone types in Andrea Moss, they probably want to see a homepage. Okay? Good guess. And at that point, they weren't seeing it. So by hooking up Google Authorship, we're telling Google that, hey, this is Andrea Moss here, and this is Andrea Moss publishing over here on her own site, and they're linked together. Now, that's important because all of these other social media properties that are linked to the Google profile are all linking back to andreamoss.com.au, and there's this connection between Google profile and andreamoss.com.au. So Google knows this is probably the home. And it was at that point that it jumped from page 2 up to the, you know, the top 3 spots. Now, to go even further than that, all that needs to happen is probably just Andrea publish a couple of blog posts because she's got such a huge fan base now. that people are going to be sharing them, talking about them, because Andrea's getting so much press. Possibly, if anybody writes an article on her, they'll want to link to the website as well if she's written a recent blog post and those sorts of things. And it's important because if you're active in all these other social media properties, which you should be, you should also have a home base. It's called, I think I've mentioned it before, I think Chris Brogan I credit with the saying, which is, share the message, own the destination, which basically means go out and talk about it at all these other different social outlets, but make sure you're bringing people back, because at the end of the day, you don't own all those social media outlets. And if any one of them changes the rules or, God forbid, boots you off or whatever else, you're not going to lose everything because you're bringing people back to your home base. All right, so that's why it's important. And if you are doing media or press or any of those sorts of things, make sure you have that Google authorship up. I didn't say that. And make sure, there's something wrong with your ears, and make sure that you are publishing on a regular basis, because by doing that, it's not only showing Google that, hey, this site is publishing, but it's like, oh, you're the person who everyone's talking about in the media as well. I can see that because you're linked back and forth. And that's especially important if there's something in the media, if there's something about your brand. And a lot of sites still don't have Google authorship. A lot of business sites don't have Google authorship set up. So make sure you do that. Hopefully that's helpful. And check out Real Housewives Melbourne if you get a chance. I have. And we'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Bye.